Okay, I'm good. Dawna, can you give me one clap, please?
Here we go.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Powder your nose and get your mask off.
If I'm talking in this voice, does it sound like I'm shouting?
You were filming all of this, right? I want to make sure this is...
Yes, let's get going.
All right, everybody.
As a journalist, the thing you want to do as a reporter and as a journalist is to bear witness. When there's a big fire burning, we run towards it. When a bomb goes off, we run towards it.
Oh God, the smell, the sound.
To cover it, to find out what are the implications for people.
Get out of here!
That's what we do. So I guess you could say journalists are sort of drawn to disruption.
For 2 decades, the disruption in the world has been continual. It just never stopped.
At 15 minutes away from 6, there's the view. Beautiful, just a few clouds around the area. Let's get into what's happening through British Columbia right now.
Welcome everybody to our brand new facilities here at Global BC in Vancouver. Any preview isn't complete until you've had a sneak peek at what you're going to see on your television sets on Monday, so come on this way.
I saw that the Global Network was wanting to become national.
This really is a remarkable studio. People have put in long hours to make sure that we can stream web video.
And that one of the things that they agreed to do was to create a national newscast.
The countdown is underway. Global National is only hours away.
And I had just bounced badly out of hosting Good Morning America, and I wanted to come home.
1 minute to the opening. 32.
We wanted to disrupt the television landscape a little bit in Canada by putting national news on the dinner hour, and we wanted it to have a very different voice.
Well, we didn't want to give people just, here's a list of things that happened today. We wanted to put it in context. We wanted to tell people, here's how it affects your life.
People are getting ready for work. It's time for kids to go back to school. And it's time for Global National to take its first few baby steps.
When I look at the early stories, the first 6 episodes of Global National, news was softer when Global National first went on the air. And so that original plan that we spent 5 months thinking about and executed for all of 6 days was for an era that it turns out didn't last very long.
Oh my God!
My goodness. A second plane now has crashed into the other tower of the World Trade Center.
That tower would have been packed with people at this hour, and we don't know how many people were aboard the jet.
This is no accident. This is no bomb from inside. This is, as you put it, a terrorist attack. There's no 2 ways about it.
High alert. You were awesome. Great job. You were awesome. Hello.
People are screaming down, heading away from the World Trade Center.
Let's go, back up, bam!
Having heard the second blast, people are running, some of them running now.
The firefighters are in there for a major fight. The stairwells, of course, are how people are going to be evacuated. People will be evacuated out of these buildings.
Don't worry, don't worry. Don't worry.
And it was stunning. I remember someone walking into the control room, looking up at the screen and saying, oh my God, those are people jumping from that building.
Can we go back to that picture, please, in the control room? It's difficult to know. Let's take it full frame if we can, please. But it looks as if that second tower has either had sections of it fall off or has just collapsed.
That stays with you. Just, oh my goodness, what is going on?
I was sitting on the anchor desk looking at the city I'd lived in not even a month ago. And now I was looking at towers where I knew some of my friends worked in.
But 9/11 happened. I was in the Tel Aviv bureau of NBC News, and like everybody in the rest of the world, we were just glued to our televisions.
An unbelievable scene in New York City. You can see the whole lower part of Manhattan at this hour engulfed in smoke and flames as the second section of the World Trade Center has apparently collapsed in flames.
So when we got to Liberty State Park on the Jersey shoreline, it was a view. You were basically looking at the city of New York burning. The odor, like the smell of smoke is one thing, right? A campfire smoke, that's one thing. But the smell of things that aren't normally on fire is something you don't forget.
Mark, Svi, where are you? What happened?
What? The building collapsed. Part of the building collapsed.
It was hard. We went on for 16 hours and we didn't buckle. But after those 16 hours, I drove home, and it was a beautiful, sunny, blue sky day in Vancouver with the North Shore Mountains, and I pulled over to the side and I cried uncontrollably for about 30 minutes.
Elizabeth Rivas knows the chances are slim, but clings to hope her husband might still be found alive.
But he can be agent, and maybe they don't have his name.
We started bumping into people that were panicked.
At locations throughout New York, the lineup stretched sometimes around the block, with people looking for any news of their loved ones. This woman was trying to find out about her brother.
He's light-skinned with freckles.
And they would walk right up to the cameras and just hold it in front, just desperate and overcome with I guess it was the grief. You know, I've never seen that kind of grief in that volume before.
And this is what it's like when a war is in your home.
I think after that, it almost said, well, almost anything's possible. It just changed the whole potential for what could happen next.
I think that pre-9/11, life felt safer. I think journalism seems slower paced.
When Global National went on the air, that's kind of the experience that I expected it would be. But then 9/11 happened. And then Afghanistan war happened, and then Iraq happened. And then it was just one major crisis after another on top of each other. We couldn't catch our breath.
Tonight, war is inevitable. Evacuations of Westerners underway in Iraq. President Bush preparing to issue Saddam Hussein the final ultimatum. A third of our naval warship fleet has been committed, along with planes and some special forces.
From the East Coast, 3 frigates, a supply ship, and a destroyer equipped with Sea King helicopters are heading to the Persian Gulf and the Mediterranean.
Calmed down a little, but still harried, still a little nerve-wracking for a lot of the people here. We had another several missiles come in today. Just watching those very powerful bombs take out major installations and the palaces in Baghdad.
Fighter jets bombing the capital, Kabul, and other cities. An apartment block was hit with 5 people, including a child,
hit by its fighter jets.
And
it says the aggressive bombing will continue.
Delayed in the mountains of Afghanistan, things are moving very quickly.
The story that I will never forget from Afghanistan is March 8th, 2008. We went out to Kandahar to see how women in 2008 in Afghanistan were acknowledging International Women's Day. And we went to this compound where you're behind a closed door, and we sort of waited. There was this first event happening. Just wait here, we're gonna have speakers, people will come. And you're wondering who will come. There was just women coming out from all over the place. And the thing that stood out for me from that is the bravery, first of all, that there would have been to leave their home and come celebrate women when women are absolutely not celebrated by so many in that country, at least not by the Taliban regime. And then there was this woman who did an interview with us. So she's not only brave enough to come out, she was brave enough to show her face and talk to us about what life was like to be a woman in Afghanistan in that time. And she talked about how women were treated like dogs. That was her word. But not like a dog, like a pet, like a dog that you kick, a dog that you beat when it's down and you hurt again and you treat just like this animal living in your home. And so for me, I can see her face, I can hear the cadence in her voice, and every International Women's Day since hasn't passed without me thinking about her and wondering, after she went home, what happened to her.
Almost in a daze, he tells Global National the same thing twice.
Robin, the whole point of Operation Mushtarak is to win over the Afghan people.
The Canadian edition of Maxim. There, his eyes right on fire.
Right on.
30,000 people cross here every day, and most of them get by with a wave.
People saw it and they knew we were at war, but they didn't really process that until we started seeing those absolutely heart-wrenching repatriation ceremonies that were just, I remember every single one I ever watched, and they were a feeling we hadn't experienced as a nation before.
Ramp ceremonies like the one that happened here today are unfortunately becoming part of our national experience. The vehicle Trooper Mark Wilson was in struck a hidden mine or bomb on Saturday. He was helping to build a road in the dangerous Panjwai district. In our 5 days of broadcasting from Afghanistan, his was one of 3 deaths, all members of the Royal Canadian Dragoons, all killed helping to construct that road.
While I was in Afghanistan, I had the absolute honor of covering the story of when some families came to visit. And there was a memorial, and they spent some time at the wall where all of the pictures are.
A compulsion to see and stand in the last place their loved ones did brought 17 Canadians to Kandahar Airfield. Tim Goddard's daughter, Nicola, was the first Canadian female combat soldier to die in battle.
Nicola Goddard's dad was there.
My wife, Sally, decided that she didn't want to come. She feels at peace with things as they are. I felt the need to come.
It was just a lovely service, and I remember standing in the background. I had my sunglasses on because I was just bawling.
To Save the Children's Hire, and my wife got it for me. And Nicola always used to laugh about me wearing it, and so I thought it was appropriate to wear it today.
I think this is the other part that people don't realize, is that we're so stoic on camera, but a lot of times we wear a lot of the stories that we cover.
To really understand Afghanistan, you've got to get outside the wire. We were out on patrol in a village a couple times with Matt Daw.
Could you say here, just for audio, your name and rank?
Sure, Captain Matt Daw.
That's pretty good.
Not bad? Sorry, man. Just gonna throw myself out here. So how'd you guys sleep last night?
Tell me, man. I'm rolling. All right. Matt was 27 at that time when he and I met. And right away, you could see the leadership skills there.
Our platoon right now is providing security on the flanks for these guys as they're going through.
How did I find out Matt was killed? So it had been about 2 weeks since I last saw Matt, and I was sitting at home and I turned on Global National. It was a day off for me. And then I saw the story. And it hits you so hard. That young man was quite young, probably didn't remember his dad. But boy, what I tell him. Lucas, how are you, bud?
Good, you?
Good. First of all, it's just absolute pleasure meeting you. It really is.
Yeah, thank you.
I can talk a little bit about your dad and my time with him, if you're okay with that.
Yeah, that sounds good.
What really impressed me about him was that he sort of embodied core Canadian values, small town Canadian values, whatever you want to say. He was just a really nice, decent guy. He's the kind of Canadian you wanted representing this country in those villages in Afghanistan. He exemplified everything that was true and right about our nation. We're not a perfect country, but we're a good country, we're a caring country, filled with really caring people. I'm just curious, what kind of things do you think you'd like to do in the future?
I like police officers. Like, I'm kind of looking to something like that because I want to help out in the community, and especially with things going on right now, I kind of just want to fix all of that and just kind of fix everything.
Yeah.
And I want to be involved like in the community and kind of just get out and just experience things.
Good for you. Well, your family's got such an amazing record and history of public service. That doesn't surprise me.
Thank you.
You're rolling? I just want to, if you roll, I'll just get a question. This place is not very big.
When I was in Afghanistan, one of the things that I found myself hoping was that maybe someday when my kids were 18 or something, I could go back there with them and that things would have improved enough for that. Maybe we'd fly into that Kandahar airport, the civilian side. Fast forward to today, that's not happening. For some reason, when I look back, I think of my kids and go, that's too bad. That was what I was hoping for, and I guess it was way too optimistic.
How has it come to this? This is just horrific. They have nothing to lose. These people are human with shields, and they're just moving with all their heart, all their might, like it's their last night here.
Tonight on Global National.
Engulfed in flames, forest fires whipped by high winds devour a huge chunk of an Alberta town.
Look at this, a whole bunch of fire, Highway 88 right here, and people are looking to get out.
Good evening. We're coming to you tonight from Athabasca, Alberta, where one of the 3 evacuation centers has been set up for the thousands of residents forced to flee Slave Lake.
Other than get out of here.
I think the biggest disruption in our lives, it's happening in slow motion, but the biggest disruption in our lives is climate change.
These are the smoldering remains of Slave Lake, burnt buildings, charred vehicles, a ghost of a town 7,000 once called home.
This is probably the worst curveball nature has ever thrown at us.
And joining me now is Shelley Doucette. She's one of the people forced to flee last night, along with her young son, 3.5-year-old Aiden. Shelley, give us a sense of how much notice you got.
None.
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 We've covered more storms than I can count over the last 20, 21 years, extreme storms. You cover each one, and no one feels qualified to say, this is climate change, because it's that cumulative body of evidence. But you look back at all the stories you covered, and all the people in every story saying, we've never seen anything like this. Hurricanes, snowstorms, wind, rain, storm surges.
In the village of Dunrobin, 53 homes were hit by the EF3 tornado on Friday.
And you think about those in combination and you think, yeah, that's pretty compelling evidence.
When you've covered flood after flood after flood after forest fire after drought, after, pests taking over farmers' fields because of, weather pattern changes, you just sort of shake your head and be like, are we back here again? Are we really telling this story again? Haven't we learned anything?
Well, Dawna, it is chaos, really. You hear the emergency sirens going, but I need to show you, it's not just on the border. This is Fort McMurray burning.
When Reed did that one live hit, where we could see the flames behind him approaching, I think I looked a bit stunned on air because I recognized what was happening. I didn't want to panic him, but what I really wanted to say was, Reed, could you just stop talking and get out of there?
But Dawna, look at that. Like that, even in the past 5 minutes, has just flared up. And to be honest, I'm not sure how long we'll be able to stay here, but it shows how quickly things are changing.
It was an incredibly dramatic moment. I think in the time that I have been a journalist, the biggest change has been, again, because of technology, because of the internet, and because of cell phones with cameras. So they made everything much more present. They made it possible for us to see what was happening on the street immediately.
Global National. From London, here is Dawna Friesen.
Good evening. Tourists are fleeing Egypt by the thousands tonight.
I remember thinking when that first began to happen, especially in the Arab Spring, we relied so much on citizen journalism. And there was so much hope and so much of a sense that this could be transformational for these people who had been oppressed and suppressed by their governments.
Well, first of all, just getting into Egypt, as the Arab Spring was accelerating, we realized very quickly we cannot walk in like traditional media anymore. We can't bring that bulky ENG camera that we all carry. That's quite large.
It's much too dangerous for us to venture outside today, so we're stuck here in the hotel with the rest of the foreign media, watching this incredible drama unfold.
Looks like the fighting has picked up again. In fact, it hasn't really stopped. It's a bit of a lull, but this is something I have never seen in my life. This is absolutely crazy, just nuts. Us being out there is just not a good idea right now. Journalists, Western journalists have been attacked, assaulted. Our vehicle today was surrounded by pro-Mubarak youth. About 25 of them. We were basically held hostage in the vehicle for about 25 minutes.
No, we are filming for Global Television from Canada. We are here to film Canada, yes, Global Television from Canada. Sir? Wow. Sir, what's going on?
Sir, why are you taking his keys? Why are you taking his keys?
Sir, shukran.
So that weekend alone, I remember going, this is absolutely crazy. We're not carrying a bulky camera around. So in this case, our photographer, Barry Yackton, and myself, we walked into that protest and that rally with 2 iPhones. And we filmed our entire story relying on 2 phones.
I'm happy and I want more.
Ragda and Rauda are part of the Wired opposition. They don't hesitate in telling you who's responsible for this historical moment.
Young people
on the Facebook.
Yeah, we were
group on the Facebook.
Yeah. So you use Facebook and
Facebook and Twitter.
So there was a growing media ecosystem within the Middle East as well, on top of Twitter, Facebook, and many other social media that were just starting up. So the entire media ecosystem was just starting to be disrupted, and Hosni Mubarak and his regime did not know how to deal with that.
I remember being in Sri Lanka post the tsunami, Boxing Day tsunami, and we were trying to find a way to send our story back.
Military had set up blockades at almost every road.
They don't allow for the foreign people. They are afraid.
So are our driver and translator. If they're caught helping journalists, they could go to jail. But they agreed to try and show us something
just as long as we agree not to show their faces.
So we found this company to send our story back, and we called the satellite guy. I don't know who it is. We called the person in charge of trying to help us get the story back, and he said, you need to get to the E6 satellite, and we ended up doing 6 bounces, I believe, like around the globe, where the story got sent, to space, and then over here, and then above China, and then down, and over to America, and finally the story, a couple minutes later is in Vancouver. So that to me was like, oh my gosh, wow, look what we can do. And then next thing you know, a few years after that, you are on your phone, taping yourself, filming yourself, talking about an event, and the story is there within seconds, or you're live streaming it.
What cameras in the hands of people have done, of course, is take us to these immediate unfolding events.
At one point, he runs into a glass door, then back into the street towards officers. That's when several shots are fired.
Floyd was arrested after being accused of using a counterfeit $20 bill. An officer knelt on his neck while he begged for mercy.
I can't breathe.
One of the things that's happened with everybody being witnesses and everybody having access to video and being able to share it has been that the definition of who gets to decide what news is has broadened considerably. And so nothing really escapes the eye of the witness anymore in this world.
Check his pulse. Check his right. No, check his pulse.
How has citizen journalism changed everything? I think you should just take a look at the Black Lives Matter movement. If those people weren't recording those things, we wouldn't have the evidence. It's so important because so many of those people didn't get their stories told, and they were just immediately shoved aside, and the stories were covered up, frankly.
Technology is usually what leads to rapid change in society.
Wake up! Wake up! Black Lives Matter! Arrest the cop! Arrest the cop!
It is the reason a white police officer in Minneapolis was convicted of murdering George Floyd. It was because of a person holding up their phone and taking a video of that.
You are fake news.
Alternative facts is the only true one that is telling the truth. Yes. And is going to save us all.
All right. All right.
Okay.
Eric, it's Kevin.
I'm good.
Can you hear me?
Yep. I can hear you, and I'm good.
Okay.
We're good here.
All right. All right. Okay.
Tonight on Global National.
Standing by a building built by slaves, an African-American is sworn in as U.S. President.
I, Barack Hussein Obama, do solemnly swear.
Our team of correspondents will bring it all to you tonight, but let's begin our coverage with our Washington Bureau Chief, Eric Sorensen. Eric.
Kevin, as a staged event, the inauguration was exceptional. But as a moment in history, it was truly extraordinary.
I remember Barack Obama in his campaign had used Twitter. And that was 2008, and I'd sort of heard about it. I didn't think it was all that important. But for the inauguration, the Obama team was tweeting out a lot of their messaging for the first time. And they were tweeting out pictures of him behind the scenes for the first time. So I thought, I better get on Twitter. We integrated into the newscast. We were one of the first to do it because it seemed to be a really useful tool. And it used to be good to interact with your viewers in a substantial way. And then it stopped being good. And then it started to be harmful. And then it started to be dangerous. And I think that's where we are now.
I have a love-hate relationship with social media. So that it continues to this day. From my perspective, my personal brand is sort of who I am as a person isn't what's important for the job that I do. The importance, from my perspective, is really delivering information to viewers. And my ability to do that is not, increased if I have a big social media profile. I think it can be soul-destroying, and I I just don't need that in my life.
Facebook was great initially because you could connect with all your friends, and Twitter was amazing as a journalist because you were basically getting a live feed from witnesses on the ground of news events. That doesn't make it easy. It particularly doesn't make it easy as a woman because things are said about you that tend to be said far less about your male colleagues. Comments about your looks, comments about who people assume you might be in a relationship with, or trying to undermine people by saying, well, their husband or their boyfriend, or, oh, they're probably sleeping with so-and-so. It's shocking when you see this. And it's purely being done as a tactic to try to discredit you.
It's vulgar, but trending, often hurled at female television journalists if they're spotted in the field. This Toronto reporter could have swept it under the carpet like women have been doing for centuries.
I'm sick of this. I get this every single day. Do I feel as safe doing my job today as I used to? No, I don't.
They'll say the worst things like, well, they shouldn't be allowed in this country, or they put all this bigotry onto the internet, all these horrible comments, and trying to police those is not fun.
In my time, I worried about people being overseas, that their danger would be there. I didn't dream they might be attacked at rallies here, not just verbally, not just online, but perhaps physically. And that's a scary thing.
It was a bit of an eye-opener to me just how dark parts of the internet became and have become.
The Fort Hood killer and the Times Square bomb suspect plotted their attacks using the internet. The Russian spy ring employed internet cafes to avoid detection. Increasingly, criminals and extremists are exploiting the internet to communicate anywhere and everywhere.
You look at how somebody in a basement in Downsview can be radicalized by the places of the internet that they can go to. We saw the results of that when there was an attack on our parliament.
The gunman somehow made it past security into Centre Block, just as government and opposition MPs were holding their weekly caucus meetings. The gunman was shot dead in a dramatic shootout in the Hall of Honor. He's been identified as Michael Zehaf Bibeau. A parliamentary guard was reportedly shot in the leg. Shaken MPs barricaded themselves inside meeting rooms while others managed to evacuate.
But we're seeing that now too. And we're seeing that primarily around white supremacists and young white men who are being radicalized in tribes and in societies and in ways that is massively disruptive to the world that they actually inhabit.
On this Monday night from Washington, D.C., just hours left in a relentless campaign.
We are going to win 4 more years.
From a news perspective, the presidency of Donald Trump was a non-stop disruption.
Team Trump calls the media dishonest. The media called the Trump team's assertions falsehoods. And Trump aide Kellyanne Conway explained it like this.
You're saying it's a falsehood, and they're giving, Sean Spicer, our press secretary, gave alternative facts to that. But the point remains
alternative facts? Alternative facts. Is that emphasizing different facts, or is it just contradicting genuine facts?
He's the only true one that is telling the truth. Yes. And is going to save us all.
I think the time where I realized how pervasive misinformation is and how it often comes from really common sources was actually attending a Trump campaign rally right at the tail end of the 2020 campaign.
Tell your governor, open up your state, open up your schools.
And we were in North Carolina. We went to this rally, and every single Trump supporter I interviewed would come up with the same answers to my questions. Are you worried at all about your safety being here today, packed together in a crowd?
No.
Not at all?
Not at all.
Will you wear a mask?
No.
I think that there's a lot of other more pressing issues than the pandemic.
And they were specific statistics and specific facts that were all false. They were not true, but they were rhymed off as the answers to every single question I asked about every issue, ranging from Joe Biden to the pandemic to the economy.
We are behind him 100%. The U.S. is doing more than your Canadian population.
And they were all stats that they had heard on sources like Fox News or One America News or the more fringy networks or on Facebook coming from the Trump campaign. And you realize what a fight we're up against as journalists to tell the truth.
I spent a lot of time covering Russia, and that meant spending a lot of time covering disinformation and, these really concerted multi-million-dollar campaigns to try and confuse us as Canadians and Americans, to try and, sow division.
Just a short drive from the famous palaces of St. Petersburg is an ordinary office building that's become infamous. This for rent sign adorns the former home of the now notorious Russian troll factory, which the U.S. accuses of meddling in its 2016 presidential election, and where Vitaly Bespalov used to work. My job was to write 20 news articles a day full of pro-Kremlin propaganda, he says, and then share the articles using fake online accounts I created with photos taken from real profiles, usually women, because they were considered more trustworthy.
I remember, just being amazed at how easy it all seemed. It's sort of like they would just find other people's photos online from real profiles. They would use those to make a fake profile, and then they would start using hashtags and start promoting false information, and then that information would get retweeted not only by other trolls, but by literally millions of other internet users.
Give Vladimir Putin credit for figuring out that he could disrupt so much of Western democratic society at such a low cost. Disruption is creative.
Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery.
Disruption is destructive. Disruption is opportunity.
People here in the square who have a whole new hope, and they're so eager now.
And it's exhausting.
Nothing in decades has disrupted humanity and the way we live our lives the way the pandemic has. Even if you haven't become sick, your life has been affected because your life has become so limited and so restricted. I don't think we'll fully understand the impact of it until a few years from now.
Pandemic was a confluence of so many storylines. There was tragedy with people dying. There's science with the vaccines. There's the economic factors here. And then there are personal lives were affected. I didn't see friends for months.
At least 3 patients who had traveled from central China have been hospitalized in both Thailand and Japan.
Do not travel outside Canada. There are also new travel protocols that will affect all overseas flights to Canada and all cruise ships that want to dock in Canada.
They are going from one 14-day quarantine to another. After 2 weeks on what some called a floating prison.
I don't mind this 14 days. Both myself and my wife, we agree that we should take this extra 14 days to be virus-free.
The first death in Canada was at a BC long-term care facility.
I want to start off by letting you know that we unfortunately have had a death here in British Columbia.
I remember when our public health officer, Dr. Bonnie Henry, had to tell the media in her daily briefings that it had happened, and she broke down. And I remember we all sort of took a pause, and I had a pit in my stomach. I actually felt really sick about it because I thought this just isn't the first time she's going to have to deliver this bad news. And it went on and on.
Every expert I'm talking about here, the more I'm learning about this, suggests that we're coming to a place where, working from the office for most people is not going to be feasible anymore.
Hey, I found you.
You sure did. Working from home will either drive us batty or get us to laugh at silly things.
We used to have a section of the newsroom where we all were together, sitting close, right next to each other.
I get Zenu, is that their thing?
With the pandemic, about 75% of the staff in our building is working from home or just remotely. And so that meant a lot of empty space.
I think the first wave was scary because we didn't know what was going on. I mean, we still didn't really understand this virus and what we were dealing with. And I was terrified about bringing that virus home to my wife and newborn. By the third wave, we knew what we were dealing with in a sense, but I had seen the hospital, I had not seen that hospital as overwhelmed.
This Toronto hospital is jam-packed. That alarm ringing through the halls is code blue. A man in his 40s just arrived with a suspected case of COVID-19, and his heart stopped. Staff in the emergency room inserted a ventilator tube and saved his life, while other patients are lined up in the hallway just outside.
There were more younger people in there. They were getting sick faster. We were hearing stories of people dying at home.
And if you walk the halls of the ICU, you can see up close the changing face of this pandemic. We were here in the first and second waves, where you largely saw elderly patients sitting in these rooms, but these days there are a lot more people who are younger.
I've gone, I was sent to Iraq when ISIS was there. Been in hostile environments before, but then you get back on the plane and you go home and there's a bit of separation, whereas obviously the pandemic, there really is no escape.
After 9/11 and with the threat of terrorism for years, my grandmother used to say, I don't understand how people can bring up kids. It must be so hard with all these threats. And I would say, Grandma, you grew up in Scotland during the Blitz. You had a bomb shelter in your backyard. We're okay. The pandemic is the first time where I've thought, oh, you know what? This is comparable probably to what, Grandma went through.
It is a question of value. To quote Oscar Wilde, do we know the price of everything and the value of nothing? When this COVID crisis is over, there are deeper questions to tackle about the worth of heartfelt, hands-on work. For now, what we offer those doing essential, exhausting work is profound gratitude.
And we kick off tonight with some significant victories in the war.
When you think back 20 years, I mean, there's a whole lot of trauma that you remember, but I gotta say what mostly comes to the forefront is the crazy time you have trying to do what you do. So we had so many great moments. I remember very early, 2003, we thought, why don't we put 5 people in a bus with chairs that won't go down so they can sleep, and let's do 36 remote shows for an election across the country going west to east. That was nuts. That was crazy.
Okay, real fast.
But my favorite story involves somebody who is behind the camera right now, Kurt Brownridge. We were on a Learjet, and we found out from the pilot that if you shotgun a beer on takeoff, it goes down with G-force. So of course we had to try it. And I think, Kurt, you cheated?
Cheated a little bit.
Cheated a little bit. But it was sort of one of those crazy, wonderful moments that in the passage of time, with all that we've been through together, those are the memories that stick the longest.
More yeah.
Oh, can I tell this on camera?
Jamie lost his passport the night before we went to Russia. He'd gone on some boys' weekend or something with there. You were filming all of this, right? I want to make sure this is...
The time I almost missed the Prime Minister's plane in Japan coming back because we were at the sake bar trying different kinds of sake. It was great.
Or then we got sent to Iraq and realized he forgot his computer cables. We were driving around a market in Erbil trying to find another computer cable.
I was able to change my clothes in the bathroom of the car rental, shove them into the garbage box there, get into the car, drive, do my story. I was thrown up on, and I still filed my story.
when you look back on it, you know, the exhilaration or adrenaline can take you a long way, and also just sort of reflecting on, I don't know how we were able to pull that off.
It was the best. I loved it.
I've worked with a lot of great guys.
I still believe fundamentally, you know, after all the stories I've done of horrible things happening and people dying and, you know, terrible acts of violence perpetrated on other people, I still believe fundamentally in the goodness of humanity.
Hey, my pleasure. So great to meet you. Thank you so much.
I often describe to my friends the hamster wheel of news, that we're constantly doing this, just trying to keep up with the volume, which seems even more like a fire hose these days than it ever has been. And so to take those moments to look back and see what we've accomplished and the stories we have delivered and the moments of anguish in people's lives, the moments of agony, but also the moments of real joy over the years makes it all worthwhile.